It only makes sense, bro, because I feel like everything, when I turn on social media, even the news, every podcast is still on Joe Rogan. So last week it was Joe Rogan is spreading misinformation. That one we moved on from, and now it's Joe Rogan's a racist. So as an African-American man, how do you feel about this whole shit right now?
I mean, first and foremost, I hate when that term is used too loosely because
racist?
It takes a racist. And the reason why I say that is it takes away the power of the word in situations where it really should be used. I think when it's used irresponsibly, then when real racism occurs, then it's like the boy who cried wolf. Like no one's gonna believe it because everything, is considered racist. And in this instance, granted, I don't like it when any white person says nigger, like even if it's in the context of talking about a story or just the word itself, because it just leaves too much room for people to abuse that power in using the word. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think in Joe Rogan's case, it was clearly not, there wasn't ill intent behind it. And I feel like this is just another example of outrage culture. The people who already didn't like him are probably the ones speaking out and finding a reason to take him down when he's already getting all this backlash from all directions, because it's so much easier to do that when everyone's knocking you down from different directions. Oh, misinformation, this and that, and then you just throw in racist and all this other stuff until the person's life is essentially ruined for X amount of time.
Yeah. So you feel like, were you okay though with him using it in a sense, like I think he was explaining what's weird is that he's apologizing a lot. Like that's what throwing me off. But I guess the way whoever edited those videos, those like old episodes from like 10 years ago, like it does look bad out of context. But I was just like surprised, like, yo, why are you apologizing so much, fam? But so that threw me off. But in his apology, he was stating that, like, I guess like instead of just saying the N-word, like that phrase, he just said the word. Like, are you cool with that? Like the idea of that, like if a white guy or whoever, like a non-black person saying, like, instead of just like, they're trying to explain the situation, but instead of saying the N-word, they're saying the actual word.
I mean, am I cool with it? There was an instance where my roommate, my ex-roommate, who I am not very fond of, but basically I had used the word and almost immediately she like repeated what I was talking about, but I got the sense it wasn't like, hey, I need to repeat this word. It was almost like, hey, can I say it because I'm not calling you that or someone else that? It was like she was eager to find a way to use the word without it having ill intent. And I just thought it was really weird. Like I knew just because she said that, it didn't make her a racist or mean she was trying to insult me or black people in any way. But at the same time, I feel like it shouldn't be that difficult to understand that not every black person is going to be comfortable hearing that from you as a white person. Every black person has different trauma. Maybe I don't care. Who knows? Right. This black girl over here, maybe, she was called the nigger her whole life. Or like my mom, for instance, who grew up in the heart of this racist era where, she was literally called a nigger casually. Like, you have to understand,
but in an offensive, like it was
casually in an offensive way.
Was offense, like it wasn't.
Like you
just
are subhuman, basically.
Yeah.
And I think people need to understand everyone has different levels of sensitivity. And yes, it is just a word. Yes, it's just a vocal sound that comes out of your mouth. If you want to get technical, there should be no meaning behind it, right? But words do have meaning. If I call you a bitch, you're not gonna be like, oh, it's just the inflection and the air coming out of his mouth. Like, no, you're gonna be offended because I'm trying to hurt your feelings. And granted, Joe Rogan, I don't think he was trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think you have to understand when you're at a certain level, or even in your private life, like certain people are going to react differently. And there's not a single person that can say they don't know the weight of that word. And I think Joe Rogan realized that. And I think he's apologizing a lot, not because he's going to go broke or anything, but because I think he genuinely did
remorse.
reflect on it and was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, like I said it that many times, like maybe I shouldn't. And he's desperately trying to like get the public's like trust and respect back, because he just genuinely, I think, cares about his fans and people in general.
Yeah, dude, that's like, I think that's a great point. That's what I lean towards, because like, I mean, this show's like 10, 12 years ago. Like, Joe Rogan was big, but Joe Rogan wasn't this Joe Rogan. You know, like Joe Rogan of 10 years ago wasn't the Joe Rogan of like 5 years ago when this shit like really took the fuck off. So I think it's just more like, maybe he just said it. I don't think he's like said it in a racist way to insinuate like insults, but I can get like, you're like, yo, we're not probably that big. Like, I'm just saying the word to just explain the context and we'll just move on, right?
Mm-hmm.
As I don't think he'll ever fucking would do the same exact thing now, because he's too big. Dude, he has, at least from like what I see, like a bunch of black friends, bro. Like, I feel like during like the peak of the pandemic, all you just saw was Rogan and Chappelle together. Like, I feel like there's no like blacker person, quote unquote, in like our most obvious pop culture than Dave Chappelle. If he's putting his fucking arm around this guy, like, do you really think like he'd be friends with a fucking racist? Like, I just, like, that's the shit that we're not like, they're never talking about that. It's just like, oh, we found these clips from 10 years ago, let's mash them up and see. And it's like, all right, bro, but all we've seen the last 5 years, like all his immediate circle, like multiple black people. So like what are they then? Like, are you telling me like they don't count? Like, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like it's like I feel like this is a real entire point last week. The media just has like a thing against him. Like, he's a guy who's bigger than every historical news outlet and isn't being controlled by anyone. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we don't want that, bro. You know what I mean? I feel like they benefit from having someone to either say, this guy's a piece of shit, let's take him down, or they want someone on that works for their network that's getting all of this attention, right? If it's fucking Don Lemon getting all this attention, then Fox would be coming after him, you know? Like, if it was Tucker Carlson, whoever from Fox, and CNN goes after him. But now, like, everyone's going after Rogan because, dude, he's fucking bigger than all of them, you know? And, like, doesn't have a boss to really speak to, and he can say whatever the fuck he wants. And I think it's just, like, media-driven, bro. They're just like, dude, like, we just need to take this guy down because he's getting too big. And you know, dude, if this becomes the norm, then, dude, you fast forward 5-10 years, we don't even have a CNN anymore. We don't have an MSNBC. We don't have a Fox News, because why would it? These podcast platforms are, these guys are getting fucking 15 times the view than a primetime show on CNN. So it's like,
yeah, I 100% agree with that. And just to go back to one point you made about like black people or celebrities on his show, I think that one's always like a tricky crutch or like argument to fall back on, only because I guess his concept of like exceptionalism, you could call it, is, you know, a lot of people have a tendency to make exceptions. It's kind of like the story of the white guy who's like, well, I have this one black friend, so I can't be racist. But, you know, that it's that one friend who doesn't happen to fit the stereotypes or whatever. Sure. So he's an exception, but he's also my proof that I'm not racist. I think that's how some people might approach that argument. If they're like, oh, he hangs out with Chappelle or whatever, they're going to be like, oh, well, Chappelle's like a fucking, like one of the most famous comedians of all time. Like, of course he's going to, you know, kick it with that because it's cool and fun. The same way the racist dude is going to damn near sell his home to go be front row and watch LeBron play. But as soon as the game's over, you know, he's calling people nigger in the stand or whatever. Yeah,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah, I was looking at the point of view is like, I don't know. I see Chappelle as a comedian, obviously, but like he also stands up for so many like the other rights. Like, remember he had that thing for George Floyd, like, right during that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, bro. It was more so like, I can't see that human being just like making an exception for a racist just because he's a comedian. Like, that's it. Like, I don't know. I feel like I consider Chappelle to be above that. Like, I don't think he would put his, I mean, the guy fucking moved and left America because he didn't appreciate the way he was being treated. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I could never see Chappelle like embracing someone who he genuinely thought had like racist tendencies.
Right. Yeah.
Like, no matter how cool he is, like, bro, like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, right. I can't see Chappelle doing that.
Yeah. And to be clear to anyone watching, I'm not implying that Joe Rogan is only hanging out with Chappelle and these black people because they have, their accolades and everything. I think that's just an argument that people might push back on if you were to
for sure,
online.
For sure. Yeah, dude. I remember that. We've been in those conversations. It's like, yo, you feel good using that word? It's like, dude, my cousin's sister's black. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Right. And I think people just need to realize, again, with that word, everyone has a different reaction to it. So I don't care if your favorite rapper says you can use it, or if, this person, your best friend, is black and he says you can. If you really want to, I guess in private, you could use it around him, but don't be surprised if someone calls you out, you get canceled, punched, whatever the case is. You just have to be very careful with certain things. And I think with Joe Rogan, I've watched him enough now and I don't know him personally, obviously, but I think my intuition is really good at like assessing whether or not someone is a liar and genuine, and he seems like one of the most genuine celebrities I've ever watched, and he's too open-minded, in my opinion, to be racist.
I feel like he doesn't give a fuck. So like,
no,
why would he like give a fuck to even do that? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
To hate, in a sense, like, why would I hate another race? Like, why? You know what I mean? Like, who the fuck am I to hate another race? Like, that's like the impression I get from him.
Right. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but I'm sure if we were to go back in time and we had a clip or a reel of our entire lives, we probably said some inappropriate jokes about other races or whatever the case is, and didn't even really mean it, and probably would regret saying that and be like, oh shit, like that does.
Bro, I used to use the F word, like the homosexual slur, too often, bro. And now I know for like, bro, I would never use that word in public because it just has like, it feels like dirtier now, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, whereas back in the day, it was just like, oh, come on, bro, stop being you know what I mean? Like, it was just like different. So yeah, bro, like, if we keep fucking going back and looking at people's tweets and past videos and whatever, like, dude, you're always gonna find something, bro. Like, I would like to look at the more immediate past, as opposed to let's go back fucking 20 years. Yeah,
definitely agree. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I never thought, I mean, I know this tension around Joe Rogan and his platform has been brewing for some time, but I never thought it would become mainstream to where like academics was posting it on his page.
Yeah, everyone's posting this. Like, dude, like my timeline is just like Rogan, to be honest. Like, that's why I wanted to lead it off with it. But I mean, last episode, you and I were both pretty he's beating this. He's gonna get big. He's gonna be bigger than ever. Do you still feel that way a week later with like another thing now that they're coming for him for?
Do I think Joe Rogan's gonna be bigger?
Right. I mean, so last week, our point was like, we're fairly confident. Like, if there's Rogan stock, I'm buying it. After this week of like another controversy, do you still stand by that?
I would say so, because I feel like the fans who made him big in the first place or kept him going, I think they were well aware of those clips. I had seen them before. I'm pretty sure I even saw him say nigger in context, like to whatever story you're speaking of, on one of his episodes, like while I was on YouTube. It wasn't like a compilation or anything. And I remember I kind of like, it was like, shocking in a way, not because I was offended, but I'm like, I'm just not used to hearing nigger. I hear nigga all day in music, but not nigger. Even from like black people speaking, like I never hear the ER very often. So it's kind of jarring. But then I'm conflicted too, because I'm like, maybe if I do hear it enough, it'll take away the power. Because I've been on PlayStation and I don't know what it is, but these white teenagers love calling everyone a nigger, even though you can't tell if I'm black or not because I don't speak into the mic. But like the whole time he's just like, oh, you fucking nigger, like you stole my gun, and like, oh, you nigger, like you suck. And I'm just like, after like the 10th nigger, I'm like, all right, it's not even like offensive anymore because you're
yeah. It's like, you fuck, I get it, dude. But I would agree with that. I still think he's going to be fine. I think the Spotify CEO coming out and saying, hey, we don't stand by those comments, but we're not going to silence him. That's a slippery slope. I think that's a good sign. Dude, I don't know, man. I just have more faith in humanity as a whole. That's like, bro, what are we really mad about here? You know what I mean? Like, are we really, really mad about this? Or are we being told by someone else to be mad about this? And now we're like, oh yeah, this is fucked up.
Right.
Because I feel like if you look at this at its core, and the fact that this is coming off, right after they were trying to come for him for something else, like, bro, come on, man. Like, they're looking for shit. Like, I feel like if you always look for something, you're gonna find it, bro. And then you're gonna spin it for however the fuck you want it to just, feed your narrative.
Right. And I asked like a couple people who were kind of against Rogan, and I was like, all right, so I understand you're upset, but what now? Like, what do you want to happen? Because he apologized a couple times. Like, where does he go from here? Like, do you want him to have no job ever again? Like, what's the solution to this? And he didn't have an answer, the person I asked. And then I think for me, I just really want white people to understand, hey, like, I 100% don't think Joe Rogan should be canceled at all, because he wasn't calling anyone the N-word. But at the same time, just understand that word holds weight and different people are going to react differently. You could say, the First Amendment, free speech, why does Kanye get to say it in his songs? You could come up with all these arguments, but at the end of the day, the world isn't fair, and there's just certain unwritten rules that we kind of have to abide by. And you're welcome to break them. Just understand the consequences are gonna still exist, regardless of if you like it or not.
Yeah. And then I would say, to like that person you asked that question to, it's like, dude, exactly. Like, yo, once they apologize and they show remorse and then agree to never do whatever act offended you in the first place ever again, like, then, dude, let them go about their fucking job. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what are we so mad about, bro? Like,
right.
Like, oh, this guy used a racial slur, or this guy used a homophobic slur. All right, I won't do it again. What else do you want from me, bro? Like, it'd be one thing, like, I'm only saying like dismissively because it's words, right? And again, the person receiving the word really is the one that puts the emphasis on it or not. But as long as like a violent act, or like this guy is, donating to like racist hate groups that actually go and do an evil thing. Like, if it's none of that, bro, he apologized, he'll never do it again, we'll move the fuck on. Like, I don't get like this whole like get him out of here. It's like, bro, why? Right. Like, why?
Yeah. And the last thing I want is for like the actual people who kind of skew a little more racist, who probably love using the N-word in private. And I'm gonna say N-word because I don't want this shit. Well, I cuss, but I don't want this to get like demonetized or bumped out of the algorithm or something. But I hope the white people who like skew more right wing, maybe have more biases against Black people or whatever. I hope they don't take this as, oh, you're being sensitive. Now I get to like use the word more. Like it validates whatever flawed logic they have around like Black people and the use of the word or whatever. I hope there's just more of a mutual understanding of like, yes, he shouldn't be canceled. Yes, just avoid using the word publicly, and we can just move forward from this moment instead of blowing it out of proportion and then creating more friction between these groups that already fucking hate each other.
Yeah, I totally agree, bro, because I'm almost afraid at the other extreme they do cancel him, and it just makes like that right group, like you were saying, louder. Like, oh my God, how dare they stop a white man's right to just use a vocabulary of what? Oh, like, just fucking lose their fucking shit. And then we have we have hate crimes happening or some shit, right? So, I'm with you on most of it. It's just confusing. But yeah, I would just hope society as a whole could just take a step back and like, all right, dude, what are we really mad about here? Like, if he apologized, like, why can't we just move on with our lives? But again, we'll see. But yeah, I'm still buying Rogan stock. It's definitely doing better than Dogecoin right now. So we're definitely in a good spot.